Hello and welcome to HorsePlayer Happy Hour. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatel, back with you a few miles away from the Brooklyn bunker, a few miles north specifically. I'm the one joining my colleague here. I always describe as coming from an undisclosed location. I'm from an undisclosed location in Saratoga Springs, though I'll give you a hint, it may belong to the reigning Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge champion. PTF here, though. Very happy to be with you for one of my favorite hours of the week. It's HorsePlayer Happy Hour, and joined as ever by a man you know from his work on NBC, from his own eponymous podcast. He is TV's Matt Bernier. Matt, how are things?
I'm good, Pete. I'm looking forward to this afternoon. I'm feeling very energetic, very energized. Friday afternoon, got a Game 7 tonight with the Islanders and Lightning. This is a good way to kind of get my mind off that sort of stuff. So we got some good racing. It's unfortunate that the weather rolled through Baltimore, and we're going to have to kind of deal with some off-the-turf racing. But, hey, man, nothing better than a Friday afternoon in the summer. It's
a beautiful thing, and it was kind of fun just driving by Saratoga Racecourse on the way here today and just getting those vibes and getting very close now, very positive announcements about the capacity as far as that meet goes. Let's start with the hockey, okay? We can get this out of the way. So I have a lot of heart in the game, as in, childhood team, New York Islanders, what an amazing run it's been. You know, they owe us nothing. They looked completely dead the other night. I mean, what a magic comeback. Now, of course, I want to see if they can, go one better, greedy as fans are. But so I have heart in the game. Do you have any skin in the game here?
Well, so I'm leaning toward the under. I think of the two sides, I think Tampa is the more likely winner. But having said that, from the odds that I've seen, the only thing I've been going off of is PointsBet, because that's what we use for NBC. I don't believe the odds are actually truly indicative of the chances of winning, because New York was plus 150 on the money line. So to me, that is a pretty significant overlay. But the home team has played quite well throughout the series. They're 4-2 overall. You've actually been in the black if you've just played the home teams throughout. I'm not advocating taking Tampa at minus 165 or somewhere thereabouts, but with the way the series has gone, and we know Game 7's, it's kind of like the first quarter of a Super Bowl. It can be kind of a little bit on the tighter side, a little bit slower. You don't want to be the one to make the mistake. I'm going with the under 5. I know 5 has just kind of been the magic number lately, but I think it's going to be a little bit of a slower paced game tonight. Be very curious to see if Kucherov plays for Tampa. He was not participating in the optional morning skate this morning, and it sounds like it's genuinely a coin flip. I wonder if he's going to be that classic case of sort of a decoy where he suits up, he's out there, but he's not actually, I don't want to say he's not productive, but he's more of just out there to kind of screw things up for the Islanders. But I'm just looking forward to it. Game 7s, specifically in the Stanley Cup playoffs, to me, there's nothing better, especially when you don't have a dog in the fight. If the Bruins are playing, I'd probably be losing my mind right now, but they're not. So I'm just so looking forward to it.
I'm honestly trying not to think about it, which is why I needed to bring it up with you, and I wanted to knock out the topic so we can get into the business of why we're here. We can actually have producers Craig pop it up on screen right now. What we're here to do, this contest, this HorsePlayer Happy Hour, $20 feeder that gives you 3 ways to win your way into the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. One you might call the traditional route. You finish in the top 10% of entries today, you feed into Saturday's qualifier, and you go about your business and win your way in and have your shot at the $10,000 buy-in from there. Then there are 2 ways you can get in through this little tour we've created. Points awarded throughout the season. Don't worry. Don't think, oh, I wish I'd known about that. I would have played. No. You can get involved now. You can still get 8 scores. You could even potentially be starting now and end up winning the entire tour points based on top 10 finishes, 100 for a first, 10 for a 10th, and it goes on from there. The overall leader at the end of the year will get a $10,000 Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seat, and the top finishers on the tour will join the players who finished in the top 2 of our contest every week and engage in an 80-entry playoff that will yield yet another Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seat. So lots of different ways you can win. And my favorite part about this, Matt, all the vig, as it were, goes to charity.
Yeah, and we talk about it week in and week out, but it is something that we always need to reiterate. This is for the greater good, and it's very simply put, without the horses, we can't do any of this stuff. So we need to make sure that they're taken care of when their job on the track is all done and concluded. And this is hopefully a little way to kind of contribute to making sure that the equine athletes are taken care of once their racing days are over.
Every little bit helps. I've heard our friend Kim Weir from the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, one of the two entities benefiting from the dollars today, along with the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, tbaftercare.com, who do the critical work of accrediting these organizations. I've heard her, I wish I could remember the exact amounts. I may be getting this off, but somebody saying, oh, I can only give $40. And Kim being like, no, $40, that's fantastic. That's a bale of hay. Like you just fed a horse for, X amount of time. It's every little bit helps. And we encourage people to go above and beyond in terms of their gift giving. You can do that. I mentioned the URL already, tbaftercare.com for the TAA. And then we have our own little bespoke link over at the TRF. That's trfinc.org/players. So it's exciting stuff. We encourage you to get involved. We encourage you to get others involved. And one of the fun things about these shows, we really like the community aspect of it. Matt does other programming. I do other programming. This is our chance to interact directly with you and for you to be a part of the show. So give us your comments. Who's going to win the 6th race at Pimlico? Let's start with that question.
Well, and we already have a run of show change because the 6th at Pimlico actually already happened.
Oh, really?
Our friends in Baltimore have changed the post times yet again, which has kind of become a common theme with these happy hours. So
the contest is underway.
The contest has begun, yes, and
now
we are into the second race. But yeah, Pimlico's 6th is come and gone, and
who won?
We had a price. We had a price. The 3 horse in there, Forest Fire, all told, win in place comes back $23.80. So our timing is going to be a little bit different, but that's the beauty of this. We can adapt on the fly.
We'll make it work. A lot of people had this price, Matt.
Yeah.
I'm scrolling through here, and let me see if I can tell. 31 people had this horse?
That's basically a fifth of the contest because we had 150 entries this week.
150, that's gosh, we can talk about this here because you people who are watching now, you obviously love the thing on Fridays because you're here on a Friday. Did I tell you this thing that I did, Matt? I sent out the poll. Do you prefer it on Thursday or on Friday? There's advantages to both. The numbers are telling me people like Thursday better, but there's something cool about Friday. So I want to see. We send it out there. 400 people respond. 200 Thursday, 200 Friday. Absolutely useless. So if anybody out there wants to I'm kind of leaning. I'm leaning Thursday. I'm not going to lie. But you Friday people, make your passionate case as to why we should keep it on Fridays, and we'll try to listen to that. But congrats to the tremendous spate of people who had that winner in our first race. And what does that make our second race, Matt? I'm not going to try to do this again outside the confines of the bunker and my monitors. What's up next?
It looks like we're going to be going to Gulfstream for their 4th race. We have 6 minutes to post there, and I would imagine now with the move, Pimlico is about 20 minutes. So we still have some time there. Belmont's going to get into the fold here momentarily as well, but always keeping us on our toes.
Yeah, that's Pimlico are really good. They're really good at that, I have to say. I mean, more so than most tracks. All right, so let's talk about this Gulfstream Park race with the audience. If anybody out there has a thought on this 4th race, looks like we've got plenty of scratches. A couple of horses vying for favoritism at the top of the market in the form of the 1 and the 13. We'll take another minute. Oh, Chris Couples chimes in already. Great to hear from Chris. This is the attitude we like to hear. Didn't really have a strong opinion. Says he donated his 3 entries. Did not have a strong opinion. But you know what? You'd be surprised sometimes. That can work out very well. And knowing that it all goes to charity and your money's in good here, Chris, with the $20,000 added to the pot vis-a-vis the tour, we appreciate you coming through with that one. But make us a case for your favorite horse in this one. Did you have any? Had you had a chance to take a look at this one, Matt? Did you have a quick thought on it?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, this is going to be the theme for me for most of these races today in the contest. I just had a hard time getting really creative. I thought the 13 Manuela, keep in mind this race has come off the turf. They're going to be running on the main track here. I thought Manuela was a horse who could be forwardly placed throughout. Just try to be aggressive with this one. Don't get too cute. You drop here to the 12.5 maiden claiming level. I wouldn't be surprised if this one doesn't take to the main track. Has tried it a couple times unsuccessfully, but I think you're always trying to just weigh out the pros and cons here. And I feel like with a tactical advantage going a 1-turn mile, because that's what the configuration will be with this off the turf event. I just wanted to go that route. But again, at 2-1, I mean, it's not like I'm giving you anything too juicy.
That's not a cut in line price in a group like this. Jazzy T is maybe a little bit interesting on a pace angle in this spot. Hasn't tried the dirt, but by Verrazano, that's not ridiculous. And then just looking at a quick glance of the Timeform US breeding rating, rated basically equally well on both surfaces and could potentially have that pace advantage. The other runner that Timeform has with speed, number 9, Tonala, doesn't look like necessarily a serious contender for the win, and one whose best work by far has come on turf. 5-1 isn't an unfair. That's about as nice as I could say it. Isn't an unfair price, and might be where I throw my dart, as it were, in a tricky and trappy little first race of the broadcast, if second race of the contest. But let's hear from other folks out there. However you're watching, drop us a comment. Let us know what's going on. I mean, we're happy to ask each other questions and yap the whole time. But it's, like I said, one of the unique things about the show is the ability to really get the listeners involved, not just in one portion of it, but throughout. What else are you looking forward to sports and horse racing wise this weekend, Matt?
Well, tomorrow afternoon, I'll be on the ABR Breeders' Cup, Road to the Breeders' Cup series. I'm not sure what the actual full term is, but we're going to be doing a show discussing the Stephen Foster, starting about 5 o'clock, I believe, right around there, because we'll have the Wise Dan in there as well. It'll be myself, Dan Torgman, Bram Weinstein, Ren Carruthers. I believe Ali Vance is going to be involved as well. So looking forward to that. That should be a good time. And actually, I've got 2 questions for you, pertaining to something that happened today, and one that I'm just seeing now based on the overnights. Let's start with the one today. Did you happen to see the tweet that Craig Milkowski, and good get well soon, Craig? I know he's on the recovery after a nice doing something very, very courageous. There was an Ohio bred filly that debuted and on Craig's Figs earned a 110 Timeform US rating.
This is a 2-year-old?
I'm trying to pull up the PPs right now. It might be a 2-year-old.
That would really be insane. That's racehorse farm.
Even if it's a 3-year-old,
even if it's 3-year-old, it's awesome.
Ohio bred, I just now granted it was a wet track, but I believe the final margin was 24.5 lengths going 5 furlongs. It was spectacular to watch. I'll try to find that. The bigger one here, though, we had just mentioned, I don't know if it was last week or the week prior, talking about Nick Sco. And would he go, do you give him another shot in the Whitney? That's kind of what I thought. And I think you were kind of, at least, if not outright in agreement, understanding of that thought.
I was down with that plan.
He is now entered in the Cornhusker, a grade 3 event. There's only a field of 7. He's got to beat Tenfold and Last Judgment and Modernist. But I mean, this continues into that narrative for me of you're kind of handling him with kid gloves. You're not.
Oh, yeah.
So forgive me if I, look at him now and question him wherever he shows up, because
Agreed.
A, he's probably too good to be running in a field like this. And then B, it's almost now I'm at the point of, well, you clearly don't want to take on the best of the best because you don't think he's good enough.
I tend to agree. We talk about trainer confidence. I feel like Brad Cox is somebody you can read very much in that regard. And if he's cherry picking a spot like the Cornhusker over an ambitious spot, I think it just tells you that the horse isn't what some of us thought he was back at a certain point of the year, and or it feels like he needs to be built back up, and it's a confidence booster. So, if he goes there and runs his 108 buyer speed figure and looks impressive, I'm not going to hold it against him going forward necessarily with that idea of the confidence booster, but I wouldn't be in a hurry to back him in that spot. And I think it definitely feeds that narrative pretty well, that they're looking for some lesser competition 2-turn race where he can get out there and boss horses who are just he's just better than. And maybe that'll happen, but I still wouldn't be in a whole hurry to bet on him in that spot.
And it at least, now I kind of look at it and say, sure, maybe you want to find out if you can get the 1 1/8 away from a place like Gulfstream where, speed typically does well with a ride of ground. But and it's a relatively quick turnaround in the grand scheme of things. I mean, this is a horse who has had his physical issues in the past. The Met was just 3 weeks ago. So interesting spot. Also running it at night. That's I've heard from many people who know more about horses than I do that some horses, for whatever reason, they don't take to the lights kindly. So just an interesting move all around. I was really surprised to see his name show up here of all places.
Speaking of form lines connected to Nick's Go, we have Howard chiming in. He was out at Canterbury on Wednesday. I'm sure everybody out there saw they did that record-breaking handle. It was great to see. It looks like a fantastic place on TV. Who knows? Maybe for this Breeders' Cup qualifier, Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge qualifier, they're running in the early fall. Maybe there'll be an opportunity for me to get out there. I'd love to see the place. But he asks about the thoughts on Life is Good being transferred to Pletcher and Charlatan's retirement. Life is Good and Pletcher sounds like we have a new favorite for the Travers. I'll say that much. And the Charlatan situation, definitely unfortunate. A horse who flashed all manner of talent. I have some special guests here. I have to show everybody. See, we've got.
Oh, wow. You get multiples.
Very interested in HorsePlayer Happy Hour and being very well behaved. Good dogs. Much nicer than my dog who just barks. These dogs want to come over and say hello, which is far nicer. But obviously, Charlatan is achievements. I think in light of his trainer Bob Baffert and the various issues he's had, I think I wouldn't question anyone who viewed with maybe a little bit of skepticism, but we've seen other horses go through the Baffert program and end up doing very well at studs. So, Charlatan, a horse that supposedly very impressive physical specimen. I don't think I ever got a chance to clap eyes on him personally. Certainly looked very nice on TV. Will be interesting to see how he does in his next career and how they deal with it from a stallion marketing point of view, depending on how this Baffert situation continues to develop. It's a strange one. What are your thoughts on Life is Good?
I think he's still. I brought him up on my podcast last week or the week before, in sort of the same breath of Essential Quality and Hot Rod Charlie, and I had someone, a listener, kind of kick back on that and say, you shouldn't be including him, in the same sort of category as Essential Quality and Hot Rod Charlie. We see they just broke from the gate at Gulfstream. I said, to be fair, I'm just speaking of speed figures, and there's even an argument to be made, given how fast he ran, how early he did it, that Life is Good is still the most talented of them all. And I get it. That may sound a little bit aggressive, but what he did in March, even for the Baffert horses, was kind of off the charts. And
big numbers.
To me, there is still, regardless of your opinion in the big picture of everything that's gone on, there is still something to be said about a performance that makes you look and go, oof. Even for someone who has them running fast at that time of year, that was an exceptional performance. So I'm going to be really interested to see where he does come back. If he's just now getting back to the workout tab, I would have to think, the Jim Dandy's probably too quick. I don't know if you want to bring it back at 1 1/8 there. I can't imagine. And well, I guess it depends on what that other horse that Todd has now from the Baffert barn following C, if they choose to go to the Haskell, which I've seen kind of thrown out there as a possibility, maybe the Amsterdam is a good, return spot, 6.5 furlongs, and then you try to stretch them out from there. But, I see no reason why the horse won't come back as good as he was.
Manuela taking control here. Nice run by JD's Vista, but looks to be slowing down, shall we say. Manuela going on with it in the lane to score at 9-5 in race number 4 at Gulfstream. Is this Big Bomb going to hold on for second for some contest players? Nope. Looks like just pipped on the line there. Was that the 6 that ran second?
I believe so.
In the end, and that will will that bring us up to? Are we pretty close on the heels of Belmont?
We are at Belmont.
Oh, this one's. Oh, there it is. Great.
So they're just out behind the gate right now.
Let's talk about this Belmont race real quick. If you had a quick thought on it, Matt.
Another chalker special for me. I think the outside runner for Chad Summers makes sense. The speed in here, Empress of War, really ran well in the race that was off the turf. I think you just gun it to the front here. First time blinkers. You've got that bullet workout in the back pocket. Declaration of War may end up being the next big sire that there is. Give me the chalk on the outside.
Yeah, I'm with you. It just looks like one that's going to be kind of tough to deny, and a backable favorite at 3-1. We'll see what happens with that price as they actually pop the gates here at Belmont Park for their 6th race, the 3rd of our Horseplayer Happy Hour contest today. Back to the Life is Good topic. Yeah, it's an interesting one because it does seem like a 1.25 miles off that kind of a layoff is a lot to ask for the likes of Life is Good. If Todd Pletcher thinks he can handle it based on his body of work, I wouldn't argue with him. But yeah, I mean, the game to play in those situations is you take a look at the kind of figure these 3-year-olds are running early in the year, and you can basically add a point and a half for every month that goes by. So, I mean, he's already faster than the impressive ones at the top of the division. Be pretty funny if he ends up proving the best of them after all. Long way to go before we can say that, but I mean, he's got to be. If you're a figure monkey like we are, or at least like I am, you've got to have him in the conversation, and it can't be too aggressive to at least mention him as a possibility. I mean, on what they've achieved on track, okay, we can talk about those other runners in terms of body of work, but for most of us who pick horses for a living, the speed figure is the truer indication of ability. And
that was the big piece for me, is that it's really not an outrageous thing. I don't think, again, if you're a numbers person, to include him in that essential quality Hot Rod Charlie sort of area, that category, simply because he ran arguably as fast. I mean, I think we're splitting hairs when we talk about 1 or 2 buyer speed figure points or a time form US rating or basically any figure. Well, I shouldn't say that. The sheets and Thoroughgraph, a point is rather large. But point being, he did that so early. It makes me think that, with just that natural progression, unless he was just one of those who peaked really early. And guess what? If he's going to just run 105 to 110 buyer all the time, he's a damn good horse. But I'm with you. I don't think it's a ridiculous statement to include him in that category.
Be interesting to follow along, see what various clockers have to say about him as the summer progresses, when presumably he'll be holed up right down the road. One would think. Where is this horse here, Matt?
Too far back. Oh, and he just blew the turn.
Oh my goodness, that is no, just very ugly. So it looks like the 4, Get the Candy, one of the other favorites. It has a sizable lead in the stretch, and looks like there's going to be a nice battle for second between the 5 and the 8. It looks like the 5 will hold, and there you have it. 4, 5, the numbers that will get points for those in the contest there. Yeah, that was just like I don't know. I mean, that was I'm going to just say it was a shocking effort from our pick there. Never really looked to be traveling. Was very far back, and then blew the turn. So there you go.
So then maybe, and now it's nothing more than guesswork at this point. Maybe the turf is not what this one wants. But, when you go through and look at the pedigree, I kind of understood why they wanted to start on the turf with this one. Declaration of War, again, he just feels like everything he throws runs, or not that he throws, but everything he's involved with runs. And the second dam was a winner on grass for this one. So I thought this would take to the grass like a duck takes to water. And for whatever reason, it didn't play out that way.
It doesn't always work out the way we see it on paper. That much is for sure. So Pimlico will be our next race. Yes. We've got another short field as a result of the weather down in Baltimore, the scratches. Is there a chance to get cute here, or do we need to lean in the direction of favorites?
Yeah, I mean, I was going short in here again. I think initially at first glance, I looked at a horse like Dig Charlie Dig and say, from a number standpoint, he fits in here really well. But I kept going back to the 15 times second or third, 9 times, or I should say 15 times second, 9 times third from 47 lifetime starts with only 5 victories to his name. And then I went to the far outside with the 13 Ben and Joe. Ben and Joe, if you draw a line through the turf race most recently, you've got a pretty solid effort against N1X Company, 2 starts back, has won at Pimlico in the past. I just think it's all around. I don't know. I just thought Ben and Joe was an interesting player in here, but 9-5 again. We're not really, ain't going to make you rich.
It's not exciting, but sometimes in these off the turf races, you just got to accept that. I think that the 13 Ben and Joe is going to get the better trip. And for horses like Dig Charlie Dig, I don't mind so much that seeming seconditis, thirditis type stuff when you have a horse who's like taking a drop in class or has some reason to improve. But this just kind of feels like and looks like more of the same. So I think Ben and Joe could be an okay price there, just because I think Dig Charlie Dig, we both have our questions about, and the one that they're betting really strongly, Dream Big Dreams. I think maybe people are seeing the improved early pace from the last day and thinking he's going to be closer. And maybe they're right, but just looking at pace figures and like the time form pace map, this horse is going to be pretty darn far back. And I'm not sure that's going to be the key to getting it done in this spot. I'm actually going to reach in my pocket and make a wager on Ben and Joe here.
The thing that scared me most about Dream Big Dreams is that the highest fig by a fair margin was that most recent start, and it's the only start to date on a wet track. And I think you always have to, especially when you have something to work off of. Not that the horse can't run, but just in general. I mean, the fast main track form is a fraction of what we saw in that most recent start, despite the fact that he didn't actually win that most recent run. The numbers would say that was clearly his best race he's ever run. I just want him to prove it to me again here on a fast main strip that that's actually legitimately what he was. And when you just kind of compare the two prices, I recognize you're dealing with, almost, well, it just ticked down to 2-1, but you're dealing with almost a full point higher on the tote with Dream Big Dreams as opposed to Ben and Joe. In an instance like this, I would take Ben and Joe every day.
Yeah, agreed. We got a couple of comments to get to. Hello to Tom, who is a fan. Interestingly, even though playing on the Friday, thinks Thursday is better, appreciates that extra time to handicap. I can't fault that logic. That absolutely makes sense. And then Derek chimes in, finally getting on to catch the last 2 races. The golf game ran long. That will happen. Matt will talk to you about that. Suggest that maybe he should go out and look to play another 9 based on the way things have, or maybe even 18. It's light out late these days. I absolutely miss playing golf. It's just one of those things that I ran out of time in my life for, and getting into tennis. And to me, the perceived added convenience, time management, and cost benefits and health benefits. But for me, I can't remember if I've told this story on the airwaves before, but when I started coming up to Saratoga, golf was like a big part of it. And it was this is how old I am. This was I don't want to say the bad old days. It was actually kind of cool that the pick six, the $2 pick six would end. Typically there were 9 races. They would typically end in the 8th, which was the feature. And so then you had this disconnected nightcap, which, sometimes we would bet, but a lot of times you stay for the feature, hopefully you hit the pick 6. And then if you zipped out just right, you could get 9 holes of golf in after the races were over. Try doing that in Saratoga now, by the way. You'd need some floodlights, I think.
Yeah.
But it was pretty magic stuff. And I remember one day in particular, we timed it as such that I remember the horse. It was an allowance race feature, and Christophe Clement had a pair of imports that were a formidable entry at 1-5, and we had somehow come up with a Bruce Miller trained, Blythe Miller ridden horse who I think was kin to Lonesome Glory in some way. Anyway, I think the thing was called Scalogly. We loved Scalogly. We didn't hit the pick 6, but we had a big pick 3 culminating in Scalogly. Frank Scattoni was in on the bet, but was taking the bus up. See, now we're more civilized to take the train up. Back then, it was the bus. And so we swung by the bus station, handed Frank a couple of hundreds or whatever we'd won on this joint pick 3 we put together. And then it got down and, shot the first, granted, we're talking about a pitch and putt course, more or less. A little bit more than that, but not really. But had the first, within 2 par round of my life. So that was
very nice.
It was a good day.
Those are always fun memories when you think back to that sort of stuff. I mean, even now, I wasn't nearly as, not that I'm, good right now, but I was much, much worse back in the day. But some of my favorite rounds were when my friends and I were 19, 20 years old. We would work all day, 5:30, you quick shoot over to one of the local courses, you get 9 holes in, you bring a 6-pack of beer with you out there. So I was 21.
I was going to say, I think you mean 21. You were 21, Matt.
Exactly. But you get out there and you have some fun, and you're basically just taking it in for what it is. You play until the sun goes down and you can't see the ball anymore, and then you go home. So those were, although they weren't the best scoring rounds, they were some of the most enjoyable rounds I've ever had.
Yeah, those were fun days, and the nightlife was very often our nightlife. What such party animals we were. We would just get whatever beer, a lot of cheap beer back in the day, a lot of Genesee. Throw that in a cooler. Go back to whatever house. I'd like to say whatever house we were renting. It was probably more accurately whoever we had suckered into letting us sleep on their couch. Hamburgers and hot dogs on the grill. Cooler of beer. Everybody's got a paper form back then, and just sitting, shooting the breeze, handicapping the races until, and maybe if we got really wild, maybe we'd head out to the Parting Glass or the Ice House late. But very often we never got back off the couch. All right, let's talk about this horse race. This horse that we liked, Ben and Joe, got softened up by some long shots on the front end, and is now being passed. Well, I was going to say like glued to the 8th pole, but as I said that, began to fight back and is showing something in the lane, but I think it's going to be too little, too late, and it's going to be the horse on. They just did the famed Pimlico camera stretch. It looks like it's gonna be this number 8 who's gonna hang on, though maybe the 3 isn't done yet and could try to get up late, but it looks like it's gonna be an 8-3 in Pimlico's 7th race. One of the horse that we knock gets the job done. I must say, I think the pace probably helped.
Yeah, no question about it. And I don't want to say that the pace seemed quite hot for the level. I mean, these are decent N1X types. It's not like they're, N1X types at Pimlico are not N1X types at Belmont, but you get the point. It's not like they're completely inept. I just think, boy, when he's orientate was intent on going, and the horse that you and I like just decided we're going to go on with it as well. Yeah, I mean, it took the starch out of our charge and set things up nicely for those other 2 horses that neither of us really preferred. And it's one of those races where you kind of throw your hands up and say, no big deal, we turn the page.
That happened. Okay, what's next? We've got a couple of nice comments here we're going to get to. Well, we'll keep on the golf theme for a minute from Howard, who wants to know if Louis lost the U.S. Open or Raheem won it.
No, as much as I love Louis, John Rahm birdieing 17 and 18, I think it's pretty safe to say you go out there and do that. You went out and won it. I'm not going to pin it against Louis, because also too, it was one of those things on 17. Yeah, terrible that it ended up going OB or whatever the hazard technically is, but he still needed to make a birdie. And it's not as though, unless you're just trying to play to make the birdie on 18, which was a par 5, and send it to a playoff, I would just assume go for it. And yeah, he overcooked it a little bit, pulled it left, and that was that. But no, I'm going to say John Rahm went out and won that thing, birdieing 17 and 18.
Derek agrees with you. I just flashed his comment up on the screen, made a very similar point. Somebody else reminiscing about rocking chairs and the DRF on the porch of the Rip Van Dam. Can't wait to see the new Adelphi. Speaking of those old hotels, didn't really get a good look last year. JK and I had a couple of drinks on the back patio at some point. Don't worry, Marshall. They're fine. They're lovely. I'm enjoying the company. Marshall's, I think, not happy that the dogs are wanting to get in on the show. They should just log on, Facebook page for Breeders' Cup. You could type your woof and get on with it.
Do they have entries? Did they play?
We should have.
They can come in whenever they want. I mean, if they paid, they're in. They've done their part.
We got a nice shout out from Brian, who we'll say hello to. And then, another comment on the tee shot you were talking about before. In this decent break, maybe this is a good time to talk a little Stephen Foster. I assume, Are you? We did not prep this at all, but I assume you have some idea of what you're interested in. And folks who want to, obviously you should watch Matt and the Breeders' Cup show on Saturday. But if you want to get a jump, we did our medallion racing seminar. We actually did it as a live show, which was always super fun, but it's up now on our YouTube page for Stephen Foster Night. We go over the late pick six. It's Philip Shelton of Medallion, who actually gives some amazing insight into their partnership and how they operate. Michelle Yu, me, and JK. And Michelle has more than one moment where if I'd been drinking during the show, I would have done a spit take.
I feel like Michelle's good for that multiple times.
Oh my God. It was, I'll, there's some things you can't unhear / unsee. So John Maslin now in a clear lead here with 34-10 as we're nearly halfway through this contest as this leaderboard is put up here. I see Benjamin Dayton, Jim Sebas making a run. And we've talked about this, how you can get more than one tour score, more than one tour score in a given event. So with that in mind, obviously long way to go, but Jim Sebas in an enviable position there with both the entries currently in third. David Burke, Todd Van Dree, Don Marquardt, Fred Christ, Julie Laboyko, Stephen Dudenoff, and then John Maslin with another entry up there. That's another fantastic position to be there in ninth place with 30-30. So I won't roll through everybody right now. We'll just talk about our tour players. But that's a pretty cool looking leaderboard. A lot to follow as we go along here. Maybe at some point we'll also hit the overall tour leaderboard, which had some movement last week as well. But let's talk about the Stephen Foster, Matt. What do you like?
I mean, I'm kind of Captain Obvious in here. I feel like I've gone on record saying I think Maxfield's a really talented horse. I'm dubious of him at 10 furlongs. So Saturday doesn't apply because it's obviously 9 furlongs, but I'm just trying to put him in perspective of sort of the classic division. I talked about it on my pod earlier this week, trying to kind of familiarize ourselves with who are the older horses now, because so many of the main players from last year's classic, they're gone. Maxfield, I suppose, fits right in there, but in my opinion, he's very clearly the third of the 3 Godolphin charges behind Mystic Guide, who we'll hopefully see next weekend at Belmont Park, and Essential Quality, the Belmont winner. So Maxfield, I'm not doubting his ability, but I feel like he was a little exposed as far as the cream of the crop is concerned. Just my opinion. I know I'm probably in the minority, and I've talked to people who disagree. I thought the Big Cat I thought that to me showed that at 10, I'm not totally sold that that's his game. Now, with this race tomorrow, the only one, if I was really trying to get cute, and I mean, you can ask the man right there at his house. I mean, I would have to think. To me, Warriors Charge is the only one that's mildly interesting, and
he's
that's
the interesting horse. He is.
If they go and bottom the field out, and I just don't know, especially at 9 for me with Warriors Charge. If he has a little bit, if anybody keeps him company, whether it's Silver Dust or someone else, I just wonder if that softens him up just a hair and allows Maxfield to just work out that beautiful stalking trip and take over. So I don't have any real interesting opinion in that race. It's the other races that I'm most interested in. But really, there's not a lot that Maxfield can or can't do tomorrow that's going to change my opinion of him, to be honest.
It's interesting. I think you're more down on what that Santa Anita race meant than I was. I mean, I really didn't like him that day. I thought it was a very tough spot for a variety of reasons. And I was kind of giving him a free pass. And when you see what he's done at his home games, as it were, I mean, though, he's just been very impressive and just seems to, to be good and getting better. And he's got a great situation. But I do say, and I'm not just saying this because he's in the next room, that the Warriors Charge has a big shot in this race, especially if with his, obviously the last race in the biblical weather at Lone Star, I don't think you need to worry about, and then not breaking. I mean, a horse like that doesn't break. You can just take care of the horse from there and come back the next time. But his form's a little bit dark. If they can just get out there and get not just loose, but and you use the right phrase, I think, bottom them out, just go on with it, try to get some of these other horses off the bridle early and not be pushed like there's going, as fast as you can, as far as you can, but to be able to do it not under pressure. And I'm just hoping he won't if he were the 4-5 favorite, it'd be, harder to get that trip, in a funny way. I think coming in there as a horse coming off of the non-effort at Lone Star and the loss the time previously, maybe it's going to play into his hands. I mean, I'm going to play Warriors Charge with Maxfield, back and forth and up and down. And obviously I'll have more Maxfield in my horizontal action just because he's going to be so much of a shorter price. Try to use some Dutch principles there. But, I think those are the two interesting ones.
My thought with Warriors Charge, if you could tell me I don't want to say definitively, but I mean, if we're just drawing it up and you could say he's going to work out the trip that he worked out in the Oaklawn Handicap 2-back, where he's going to go 47 to the half. And I know it's, we need to see how the track is playing, if it's playing fast or whatever, but you understand what I'm getting at, where you're going pretty quick, but you're not going breakneck early on.
Yeah.
And he can get a length and a half or two on the field. I think that makes him really dangerous in a spot like this. I am at least cognizant of whether it is Silver Dust, who I don't want to say he's fake speed, because I don't think speed is necessarily his game. He can go, but I don't think he really wants to go. I think he's a horse that likes to sit a few lengths off of it. I think Visitant might be the fly in the ointment for anybody that likes the horses to try to just get out there and go, because to me, his best game is going as well. We saw that in that Ali Sheba, and he was no match for Maxfield. So I can talk myself or see the scenarios of Warriors Charge clears to the front, bottoms the field out. Maxfield's got too much work to do. They run 1-2. I can also draw up the scenario where Visitant goes, Silver Dust goes, Warriors Charge goes. They all take the starch out of one another. Maxfield and Jose are sitting, waiting. They take over, goes off and wins by 3, earns another 105, and people talk about him like he's the Breeders' Cup Classic favorite, which is entirely possible. And I'm acknowledging right now, record this thing, Craig. I could be wrong. I could be wrong about this horse. I'm not totally sold that longer is going to be better for him. I just get a funny feeling he's more of a 8.5, 9 type.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And keep in mind, the breeder, my theory, where we might diverge is if you were talking him down at 10 and the Breeders' Cup was at Churchill Downs, right? But I mean, He is going to have to go out back to California, and we'll see if he can take his racetrack with him in that sense. If under the pace scenario you described, I feel like the over-under on his figure would be like a 108. That sounds like exact conditions to run an absolutely huge race. And then he might be dressed up off of it, and maybe I would change my mind and take a dimmer view. Michael chimes in, cheering for the purple and black silks, and points out that Warriors Charge is clear on the pace projector. I like the sound of that. You mentioned that you had some interest in these undercard races as well. We got a couple of minutes before we can dive into Gulfstream. I'll ask it this way. Which one are you most looking forward to betting?
Probably the Wise Dan. If the odds kind of shake out the way that I think they will. I like Set Piece. I think he's a good horse. If he goes off at that 8-5 morning line, I think he's a severe underlay. We just talked about Nick's Go with the way that Brad Cox has handled him. Look, when he debuted here in the U.S. last year, I thought Set Piece was going to be a grade 1 caliber runner. Just that turn of foot that he showed was wicked. There was no pace that day. I thought he was really good. And he's had a couple of little starts and stumbles here and there, but Cox has not been overly aggressive with him. And I feel like now you're running here kind of by default, where we've gone through and we've ticked off a number of these overnight stakes. Now we got to run him in a graded stake. I'm not saying he can't win the race, but I don't think his odds are going to be indicative of his true chances of victory. Some like it Hot Brown. I think he's a good horse. I don't think he's a superstar. He does have a tactical advantage in this race, which could go a long way. And I don't want to, make it sound like he can't win, but at 2-1, another one that to me is just an underlay. I like the horse a lot more at a mile. I think at a flat mile, he's really, really strong. But if you got anything close to 5-1 on Ride a Comet, I just feel like based on the company lines that he has in his past 3 starts, he's going to look around and go, there's no domestic spending, there's no hit the road, there's no smooth like straight, Colonel Liam, any of those. And as long as there is a reasonable pace, I mean, if you got 7-2 on this horse, I think it'd be stealing. I think Ride a Comet I think you can make the case he's the horse to beat.
I mean, everything you're saying is making sense. And I'd sort of decided I was going to play it to try to lock up Set Piece and some like it Brown. But if you just take a quick look at the PPs and you focus on the numbers, it's not really that kind of race. There are others that come here with claims, and I'm at least going to be incorporating that Ride a Comet idea as a backup in the spot, or maybe trying to get clever with the way I structure it. I think it's a little tricky, and my initial thought I'm not as happy with as I go back and look at the race more, which is usually a sign you need to get pretty creative in the way that you put your tickets together. Some other good stuff as well. I'm excited to see some of these 2-year-olds run as well. I'm basically team Norm Cassie on Saturday night at Churchill. I think that on the 1s and 2s and also his other runner in the other 2-year-old race, Glacial, makes all manner of sense. So it should be interesting. Should be interesting to see how it plays out. We've got 2 minutes at Gulfstream, so we might as well talk about this one. We had a couple people just piggybacking on what we were saying. Chris chiming in that he had Ride a Comet as a potential Breeders' Cup horse. That's pretty cool. And Howard gives a little shout to South Bend in the big one. Is that a horse you gave any count to?
I mean, I don't want to be unkind. I had a hard time drawing up a scenario where any of the other horses outside of a Maxfield or a Warrior's Charge won the race. And I'll admit if I'm going to be wrong. Crazier things have happened. It wouldn't be the first time I've been wrong, but I had a really hard time trying to make a legitimate case for anybody else.
David Browning, our tour leader, chimes in. Doesn't know if it's Fridays or the interview jinx. We had him on the airwaves 2 weeks ago. He is in desperate need of wanting to go back to Thursday. Be careful, David. That's going to make everybody else vote to keep it on Friday so they can catch you on the lead. But I love that the handle there is great. Kentucky Gambler 68. Actually, I think it was Kentucky Player. When Mike Maloney was interviewed by Frank and I for the winning contest, not for the winning contest player, for 6 Secrets of Successful Bettors, he wasn't ready to be public with his persona. Various reasons why one might not. Other humans let them know that their profession in life was professional gambler, and he was the Kentucky Player. So seeing the Kentucky Gambler from David makes me think of that. And they're neighbors in Lexington, and I can predict they would have a lot of fun hanging out, perhaps enjoying a beverage together, those two. So we'll have to make that happen at some point. 0 minutes to post. We've got a 1-2 favorite, but will this one be the winner, Matt?
I had initially gone to Benefactor, but this is a ridiculous price in my opinion. The horse can win. I think you can make the case is the most likely winner, but under no circumstances would I could not recommend somebody betting this horse at 1-2 right now.
No, it seems crazy. The other favorite didn't work out, but that was a favorite I could have gotten in. And that horse ended up being 8-5, but even at 6-5, I might have gone there the way I saw the race. There's some interesting alternatives maybe. What about Tamer to get a decent trip? Number 5 in this spot under Jaramillo. Not too far out of it on figures. Could get a good trip. That's where my eye is drawn at the current prices.
Karen's Cove, I suppose you can look at it and say the horse is cold on the board at 7-1 right now from the 9-5 morning line, or you can look at it and say the 2 is just taking such substantial money that everybody else is automatically, features inflated odds. Karen's Cove, I don't think is totally without a chance in this spot either. I was between the 2 and the 4. I thought the 2 was a more likely winner, but when you just compare the prices, I'm not breaking any news here. You take 7-1 every day over 1-2.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Especially, just again, sometimes I know they're an underlife. I just can't see. I just see the race in my head, and I see good trip after good trip. Not in a contest, but you might want to find some ways to use defensively. I feel like, and probably putting the thing in the winner's circle by 3 right now, but I feel like there's actually a little bit of an opportunity to oppose in this spot. Hopefully, he doesn't just get out there loose, but shouldn't. There should be other pace. This is hopefully a little bit more complicated than the public is making it.
And we'll find out. We'll find out in a matter of about a minute or so. Typically, though, when Safi's horses get bet like this, they usually run.
Yes.
But not all. You can't say everything is equal.
No, but the 2 does make the lead. There is some potential pressers there to make life uncomfortable, including my 5, Tamer, on the outside, who, I like that spot actually quite a bit. Unless the 2 just rips the race apart there from the front end. I feel pretty good about where I am with the 5. It's just going to be a question of how good this 2 is. Where's your runner?
Yeah, just kind of going up and down about 3-4 path and 5th right now. The 6 is trying to get involved in this thing. Right now, I think you'll know if you're right now giving the deuce everything that they want. If the deuce can put a neck in front right now, it's probably over. But if they can't shake clear, I would take my chances with you every day.
Yeah, let's see if Jaramillo can get this thing to finish. I think it's trouble.
Yeah.
I think it's trouble. Too much for the Saffie Joseph favorite, it looks like. Trying to just stay on there at the end to maybe hold second. Maybe if you bet it right, maybe you get your stake back in the forecast. I mean, I do think Tamer was the interesting one, but Benefactor just too much on the front end. I guess I was thinking the 3 might go out there, but maybe after the claim. You'll sometimes see that. It's one thing I notice you can get put away sometimes by the pace projector when there's been a big barn switch in the interim and the speed that's there on paper doesn't materialize. That might have been part of why I wasn't seeing why Benefactor should be that short. But hey, I'm not going to cry over missed 3 to 5 on a horse like that in that spot, especially not coming up with the one that ran pretty decently in second. Let's see where we head next. I'm guessing
Belmont.
It's Belmont Park. Well, let's go there then and see what we got. Short field, another even money shot. Apologies about the races today, team. between the off the turf and whatever happened up here, we're not. It's not exactly the best quality of racing we've had. So that's another thing I'll keep in mind trying to judge between Thursdays and Fridays is 150 is actually probably a pretty good show with the particular slate of races we have on here. But anyway, who do you like, Matt?
Well, I apparently had missed it, a late scratch. I had liked Striking Speed, but that horse has been withdrawn, so I don't really have a play in here. Looking at the prices, I don't think the 5 is crazy at 5 to 1, but that's genuinely me just playing the tote. I hate to put it that way. I didn't realize that the 1 had been withdrawn. So for me, I would sit this one out.
Past the old El Paso. Shotsky, my old friend, with the speed trip from the outside. That's a decent price. I think. So. I mean, there's other speed, but this is a horse with a touch of backlash. Maybe I'm being sentimental from the big from the big win. Derek asked about the Irish Derby. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over to attheraces.com and I'm going to read what Kevin Blake and Declan Ricks and Hugh Taylor have to say. I'll probably text Dove later. I'll do the form, obviously, and love doing the form for English and Irish racing. But the bandwidth, I counted yesterday, Matt. I talked about, handicapped and talked about 25 races on the show. So, yeah.
That's brutal.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
It's a few too many. I was supposed to have some help that didn't materialize, and I was just like, what the heck? I love it. So I was like, I'll do it anyway. And it's kind of funny. I hate to admit this, but the family, I was solo in Brooklyn, pairing out at my mom, Susan visiting a friend. Unbelievable how much work I got done yesterday as a solo act. And Muggs was out with my mom too. And it was desperately sad. It wasn't a good thing, but it did make me realize, like, if I'm ever on like a book deadline I don't think I can make, I'm just going to go off by myself for 3 days and probably be able to write 40,000 words. Shotsky did not break where I thought, but hopefully there's enough pace in here to bring this one into it. I don't know, being asked pretty enthusiastically. I don't know who's going to win. This is throw the whole blanket over them. I have no idea what's going on in this race.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of running like a turf race. They're going to sprint home now, and
Shotsky's staying on now.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have as good a chance as anybody on the outside.
Yeah, I think well, let's see. Let's see if we can level off and finish here.
Yeah, there you go. Changed over and just finish right now.
Yeah, just finish your race and don't fall apart. For a second there, I thought it was going to fall apart for the 4. Oh my gosh, that's a bit of an hourglass situation.
Yeah.
Here comes the 4.
Trying.
But I need a wire, but I think I'm okay.
I think you're good. Yeah. Good call there.
There we go. Bet into the 9 to 2 proved illusory, 5 to 2 in the end, but
The
money we'll still spend. There will be a pizza with Shotsky's name on it.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Future.
Yeah, certainly not a race that we'll be replaying for years and years and saying what a fantastic.
I love it. That's the USA version of a phrase they use over there. I love it. It won't live long in the memory. They say.
No. This is one where we turn that page. Let's get the next one. Get something out of it.
All right. Where are we? Where are we now? We've got to have we have one or two left.
Well, we've got Pimlico, and then we have another from Belmont, I believe, don't we? Yeah, we have Belmont's 8th, and we have Pimlico. We have 7 minutes until their 8th race.
Okay, and then so we will have one more Gulfstream too, or are we done with Gulfstream?
We stand by. Stand by.
I will go ahead and look at.
We have one more from Gulfstream. We have three more races left.
Perfect. So we got one more round. 2 rounds down, one more round to come. Great time when this stuff goes official. Should be an excellent time for a leaderboard update, and then we'll move on to this last trio of races. That gives us plenty of time to talk about more stuff happening either at Churchill on Saturday. Belmont, the Mother Goose is an interesting little race. I see it as a match, and I think I'm going to try to be contrarian in there and beat the odds-on favorite with Clairiere. I've always been a Clairiere fan. She always struck me as one who was going to get better as the year went on. And I fully recognize that the pace dynamics are very much in always Karina's favor and potentially against Clairiere. But I'm just very curious to see what she does. She was always one earlier this year, just had so much talent, but to me looked like she was always going to get better. There were just enough signs of greenness. I know that the big win at Fairgrounds was the result of sort of an unexpected perfect trip, but I like the run in the Oaks. I think that Oaks form is good. I mean, believe me, I'm going to have plenty of 2-3s as well, but I think there's a chance I'm going to be making a decent wager on Clairiere in that spot. Have you looked at that race? Do you have an opinion of what price Clairiere will be? Because obviously a lot will come down to that. If they're 4-5 and 6-5, it's probably a pass situation. But I was wondering if you might not get 8-5, 9-5, 2-1 on Clairiere with just how short always Karina is going to be as the horse that seemingly has such a major pace advantage.
Yeah, I mean, just eyeballing it right now, I didn't price the whole thing out. I would assume always Karina's probably in that 4-5 range, and Clairiere, I guess it depends. Really, it depends on what they do with Make Mischief to me. And I guess just at face value, she was the one I was a little interested in, just simply because that Acorn, I think, is going to actually end up being an okay race, especially if you factor in, again, it depends on what your opinion is of the track that day. But I feel like squarely at that moment, you certainly didn't want to be inside. And I think there are going to be some horses who come out of that and do quite well. Not that this filly was part of that issue. But I think that Acorn might be okay, despite it only being a 5-horse field. So if, let's say, she is in that 4-1 range, I guess Clairiere can't help but be 8-5. Now, again, I don't know where your breaking point would be, but I could see 8-5. I don't know that she'll get bet more than that, put it that way.
Yeah, I think it's short field, but a little bit interesting, and that turf race is pretty interesting. That comes after it as well. I wonder if this wouldn't be my top pick in the race, but might be the interesting horse, the Sussex Garden in there that has the 2-year-old form to Mother Earth. Mother Earth, I really like a lot. I think she ran really well at Ascot on ground she hated, and I feel like I know it was beaten 4 lengths is a lot in a turf race, but I still think that kind of form against a Group 1 type filly like Mother Earth is probably good enough to win a listed stake under a lot of circumstances in the USA. And at 12-1 on the morning line, I definitely want to mess around with her. And I guess it's all going to come down to how good Manon really is. That first race in the country looked unbelievable. That turn of foot going to 6 looked like a graded stakes, if not grade 1 turf miler. If Manon builds off that, they're all running for second. But I think that Sussex Garden is interesting to come with her. And I think Ald is a little interesting just because I'm hoping she's going to be a bigger price in the morning line, which I think she might be because she's not very fast and she got a setup last time. Not usually the kind of horse I'm interested in touting, but she's cool. I think she can continue to progress and she's got graded stakes form going long, something that most of these don't have. So I'm going to throw the 2, 1, and the 8 around and see if I can't come up with something in that wild applause tomorrow at Belmont. Interesting little contest.
Yeah, I mean, I picked Alda in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf last year, and she didn't run that day. She came back in that turf sprint, and then
Not a bad trip though.
Yeah, and she ended up winning last time out without me at 7-1, but neither here nor there. You bring up the fact that she's not particularly fast. She is one of those classic cases, and we've talked about it in the past on this show. The idea of comparing speed figures, because Timeform US has that race in the Hilltop much faster than the Beyer Associates do. And
that's interesting.
I think you need to make a decision. Do you think the Beyer team effectively says she has not improved from her 2-year-old form? Timeform, just on the raw fig, she jumped up roughly 10 points in that most recent run. Now, I'm not looking at the pace incorporated numbers, and she did have a setup, but I think it's safe to say there's reason to believe that race isn't quite as slow as it looks. So if you end up in that 6, 7, 8 to 1 range, maybe Manon is just, a freak of nature, which is entirely possible for Chad. But I could definitely see myself getting tied into a good number on Graham Motion in the stakes race.
Yeah, it is his ball game, that's for sure. Brian Natto on the Players podcast, which you can also find over on YouTube, made the case that he thought Manon could be odds on. That they're based on the visual of that last run and coming back with a good number. We'll see how they bet. I'll tell you how they're betting here at Pimlico for their 8th race. They're betting like the number 2 Can't Lose and My Sacred Place. This is one where, for me, like if you made me make a bet, I think I would still rather bet My Sacred Place than essentially lay My Sacred Place. No, I'm not going to tell you there's any value, but I can't be clever here. I mean, this one looks like should be able to waltz around there. Did you have anything clever?
No, not whatsoever. I mean, she's just faster than he's just faster than everyone else.
Yeah, and the pace advantage potentially.
Yeah, and sometimes you just, I think, have to acknowledge that, if somebody else steps up and beats you or whatever reason, the horse doesn't get out of the gate great or whatever the case may be, the horse is just faster than everyone else. And I'm as guilty as anyone of trying to cook up reasons to try to go against a favorite. But I do think there are those times, and I think it shows some level of not maturity, but understanding of sometimes there are times to push the envelope and try to beat a favorite, and other times there are times to just sit back and say, not right now.
Well, Glorious Weekend is giving My Sacred Place a race on the front end, which is good because it didn't necessarily look like it was going to shake out that way on paper. My Sacred Place, every tactical advantage, and to my eye, going marginally the better of the 2. But it's not the procession that we thought it might be, and we'll see what happens here. It's the Glorious Weekend not going away. The chalk players who did get involved in this one probably sweating a little bit now with Glorious Weekend getting up to the throat latch. But here's the bad news for the people who bet against the favorite, My Sacred Place only being asked now. So we will see if that isn't the separation that turns this into what we originally thought it was going to be, which looks to be the scenario, and would appear from here that it would just be a question of how far, but we shall see. There is still a quarter of a mile to race here at Pimlico.
Over under 8.
I'll take the over, but just slightly.
Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, it looks, it's going to be close.
It was a good number.
It's going to be close. I think it's going to be over though.
Yeah. This last 16th.
Yeah.
This last 16th, yeah. I think we're going to get to 10.
Yeah.
So, all right. We can't really crow about that one, but one of our least proud winners we've ever given out here on the HorsePlayer Happy Hour. This isn't your 10-to-1 shots or the occasional lucky exacta I put up. This one was a 1-to-5 shot winning the way that basically a 1-to-5 shot should. But there weren't 0 moments of anxious. Probably. I mean, if you'd had a large bet on that horse when the other thing got to the throat latch, you were probably saying, "Okay, let's go."
Do you remember? And I believe it was when we were taping the reality show. Do you remember the Saratoga contest that year? That it was just chalk fest everywhere. It wasn't just Saratoga, but it was Delaware Park. There's a couple other places, and the winning score was like $100. It was something outrageous. It was all 1 to 5, 2 to 5, and they all were just galloping. And I mean, you got people that are just preconditioned to try to take shots with numbers. And I'm hopeful somebody who hears this can recall what I'm talking about. That like you got 3/4 of the way through the contest, and the leader had $45, and I was like, there's no way this is correct. There's got to be a typo. And no, it was a chalk fest everywhere.
Yeah, I remember. It used to be the old Saratoga contest. The way they did it, they would annually be like 2 of the weaker cards of the meet, which wasn't back in the day, because you're talking about back before it was live bank. It was mythical money. So like you could see why they had the real estate on those days and things. But it was a bit of a perfect storm, I think, to produce the occasional day like that. Though plenty of other years it was interesting and much more divergent in terms of prices. But if anybody out there has a specific memory, do you remember who won? We know it wasn't anyone on the show, but
it was, and maybe it wasn't that contest. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. It was because I don't think I wasn't playing. So maybe it was, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, and I'm sure this makes.
Why wouldn't you have been playing in the Naira contest though if you were up there? Because it wasn't a big, it wasn't some huge buy-in.
No, but I mean, honestly, when we were going through that, I only got to play in a handful of them just simply because they were out of my price range at the time. I was really, I was scraping stuff together. I was not
going through the cushions of the couch.
No, I was not in a position to be playing for, I needed it. Genuinely, people still give me a hard time. They're like, there's no way that your rent was $400 a month. I said, au contraire. It's absolutely what it was. It was $400. It was a $1,200 a month mortgage split 3 ways. So it was $400, and I wasn't making much more than that a month. So I needed to be able to take care of the bills. So I wasn't playing in many contests, but I have to find out what that was because I'll never forget looking up.
Text Baychok, he'll remember.
I'm sure Mike or somebody will.
Yeah. We're going to do something fun with him up here, by the way. We're going to do a charity gumbo event.
Oh, wow.
Details to come, but I can't wait to get a chance to do something with him. Such a great story that he has with Thoroughbred Aftercare. We've got a new leaderboard. Let's take a look at what we've got here. Jorge Palsa in first with 46.20. Jim Sebas has maintained a good round at 44.10. Mark Wilgard, Julia Laboyko, William Casper, Benjamin Dayton, Tom Harrington, Fred Christ, John Maslin, John Bowl, Wayne Atwell, Joel Manson, Matt Miller, good to see his name up there, and Derek Vogt from the comments there as well. That's 14 of our top 15 who will advance to the qualifier on Saturday. We encourage folks also to buy into that directly. Number 15, Michael Domable, also from our comments here and making a little bit of noise up there on the tour. Up Peter Rotundo, good to see that name there. Matt Vagvolgi, another Saratoga guy. I think he had lunch with Marshall today. Rick Hammerly, the Hammer. We got all kinds of friends and family. And Jim Sebas, that second entry, that 32.40 with 2 to play, all to play for here. Now, pretty much, I mean, obviously it's pick and pray. All the picks have to go in beforehand. So depending on which picks you have in there, if you've gone for longer shots, absolutely have a chance to continue to shake these things up as we get to the sharp end of this HorsePlayer Happy Hour. We were talking about your past, Matt, as a member of the HorsePlayers cast, and it is true. Before you were this multimedia superstar that you are now, you were just that broke kid from HorsePlayers. That's right. I'm remembering it now.
Hey, I did the Around the Turn show the other night with Stu, and he basically said, we're going to call you something and the rest of us the Pores. And I said, no, you don't get it. I drive a Kia. I am certainly not someone who is, living a life of, excess here. It's moderate. I mean, I drink light beer and I drive a Kia and, I like to play golf. But that certainly does not mean that
Joe Six-Pack Bernier.
Exactly.
Oh my God, that's too funny. I'm loving what Alan is doing with Around the Turn. I think it's so fun, just something totally different. Just a new way to look at racing. That's great that he had you on. He hasn't asked me yet. I don't know what I did to offend the guy. We'll see.
You're the
boss. See if I can get an invite eventually.
You can't upset the boss.
Well, it'll be fun. It'll be fun to get a chance eventually. And folks should go check that out on the In the Money Media YouTube channel, Around the Turn. Who were you on there with?
It was myself, Spencer Lugenbuehl, and Tyler Hoffman.
Yeah, fantastic. That's a good
group.
That's a good crew. That's a good crew.
Group.
A lot of knowledge and fun people to hang out with in that context. Alan wasn't too mean to Spencer, was he?
No, he was not. He kept it between the lines.
All right, we got 2 races left here. 14 to Belmont, and then we've got this Gulfstream race as well. Which one's going to be our last race? The Belmont race will be our last race, as we have 9 minutes to race 6 at Gulfstream. We can talk about that. What about the rest of the racing tomorrow? Anything else at Belmont or Churchill that were excited about getting involved in?
Yeah, I'm actually glad that you brought up the one of the 2-year-old races down at Churchill. Glacial, I'm just curious because I really liked the debut, breaking as slowly as he did, rushing up on the inside, still drawing off for fun. Especially down on the inside, I think you always want to give 2-year-olds some extra credit for running down inside of horses. That's not a comfortable position to be in. Did you have an opinion on the horse that I like, Lansdowne for Dallas Stewart? I mean, this horse was for an outfit that doesn't typically have them revved up and ready to go first out of the box. Stewart over the past 5 years, about 8% with the first-time starters. Broke very well. Got a little bit green out there on the front end, swapped leads, but that doesn't concern me too much for the first-time starter. The fig came back reasonable for this group, but the thing that I was most taken by, not only from a pedigree standpoint, this one's actually a half to one of my favorites, and she didn't get the run very much. It's actually really not too much different than the whole Charlatan situation. Midnight Lucky, who I thought was just spectacular one-turn horse for Baffert. But the 6th, 7th, and 8th, and 9th place finishers from that career debut have all come back, and they have improved their Beyer speed figure in the next start by at least 17 points. So I don't know if that's not a mirage, but if that's, put it this way, it's not making me feel any worse about liking the horse.
No, it's wonderful. An obvious danger, and there was loads of love on the Stephen Foster Medallion Racing show we did from the rest of the panel on Lansdowne. I mean, I got stuck into Glacial for whatever reason, but yeah, I think everybody else at least mentioned Lansdowne, and I think you made the key points. The form of the race is working out well from a figure point of view, and Dallas Stewart runners that run well first time, they're doing that on their own.
Yes,
he trains them to finish, and they improve with time. So this is one to keep in mind, probably not just today, but also going forward. I'll tell you what, I'll give that filly in there. She's got attitude, the 11, a little bit of count to get up in your gimmicks as well. Twilight Gleaming, she beat on debut. Twilight Gleaming, obviously better on turf, went on to be so impressive at Belmont, running a big fig. And then, in my opinion, should have won at Ascot. I felt like that was a ride Johnny V would maybe want back, maybe just go pedal to the metal, be a little bit more aggressive there. I think maybe he gets the job done instead of running second. I mean, so I think that race has good form. And then the stakes try, second out for She's Got Attitude, didn't break, wide, slop. I mean, this is a double-digit horse that has a lot of talent. I mean, who knows? That might be an interesting little trifecta to play with those 3.
And one other to shout, when I first went back and watched the tape, and just from certain numbers, I wasn't overly impressed, but a program that I use, HTR, Ken Moss's project, his product, Double Thunder is more or less a standout on there.
Interesting.
Which I didn't see it when I went and watched the race. I thought it was, a relatively tepid pace, all things considered, and was able to get the job done. But if you're someone who is into the whole, kind of Sarton methodology and velocity ratings and feet per second and things like that, one to consider anyway.
Very interesting. Yeah, I like that product a lot. I'm a big fan of Ken and his work, which for those of you that remember the great book, Modern Pace Handicapping, I think Tom Brohammer might have even helped him back in the day develop that software. Right? Yeah, and it's got, if you like that book and a lot of those principles, that stuff I talk about all the time, the internal pace matchups and that kind of stuff. It's very very, very interesting for absolute sure. So I would highly recommend checking it out if you're into that kind of thing. I mean, there's so much going on tomorrow. It's just a bit of an embarrassment of riches.
What kind of thought on the Fleur de Lis? Because I didn't do a deep dive because I knew it was going to be a relatively short field. When I go through it, to be honest, I'm just happy that they're bringing Latruska back as quickly as they are. I mean, we don't see that anymore. And clearly they must be pleased with her, saying, let's just wheel her right back. Let's go on with it. I think she's going to be really tough in there if she runs her race. I haven't read one way or the other. Do you know where Spice is Nice is going?
Oh, she's cross-centered?
She was cross-centered at Thistledown.
Oh, I had missed that. Well, that'll be really interesting because she's a candidate, on pace figures, maybe not so much. But I mean, the idea of Envoûtant and Spice is Nice trying to, maybe take on Latruska early. Maybe Point of Honor could get involved, but it's just tricky because Latruska, I mean, pretty clearly seems like she should be the best of speed and is going to take a whole lot of beating unless we see some aggressive tactics from the likes of the 4 and 5. And if the 5 isn't even in the race, well, that might be even further advantage Latruska, especially if Envoûtant tries to just sit off her, as she's done successfully with other speedy runners in the past. So
it was nearly a full calendar year ago we were doing this exact show. Spice is Nice ran at Belmont Park, and I said, I don't get it. I don't know why she's being bet the way she is. And you said, because she is the goods. And she went out there and she won by almost 3. She won for fun. And this year, I'm watching those 2 races. I'm a believer. I think she's pretty good. Now, the Figs would say she needs to improve, but I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility.
No, I mean, I think this is just I think it's a tough assignment because, I mean, I guess there's a world in which if she were to go here and Envoûtant were to do all the dirty work and she were to be able to sit, but I think more than likely she's going to have to do the dirty work herself if she goes here. I wouldn't be, it's a tough call. I mean, it's grade 2. So, I mean, what's the Thistledown race? Is it a grade 3?
I honestly haven't even looked at it. I didn't see it. I just see that she's listed as a cross entry over there.
I'm going to take a quick look at that race for a laugh. No, it looks like it is just there's some good money here, but it is not graded. So yeah, that's a tricky one. I mean, because to run 3rd in there isn't bad for your value. I mean, sure. So maybe you just go and you see what happens, and maybe you have a chance to have a signature win if it all goes right. And maybe it goes wrong and you still run 3rd and cash a nice check and contribute to your residual value in that spot. We'll have to see what they decide to do. It's another, short field doesn't always mean boring race. It often means not as interesting race to bet. But like from a sporting point of view, I'm pretty interested to see it. And I agree with you. It's good to see Latruska back on the track. It's not like a wheel back or anything, but like in what feels like an appropriate amount of time instead of being wrapped in cotton wool and brought out twice more this year.
This race at Gulfstream, we've got a minute to go. I'm curious your thoughts. There's a horse in here that I quite like, and I've already bet her. I like the 4, Sky Interest. She's 7-1 right here. No, she was no match for Piper, who's also in this field and is half the price at 3-1 right now. But I thought it was a little bit disappointing that Piper packed it in the way that she did. But B, for a first-time starter, I thought Sky Interest ran on really well, and I think you're going to get an improved effort second out of the box. I'm not terrified of Awesome View. Awesome View can win the race, no question about it. But when I look at the form of the race that Sky Interest and Piper come out of, Fiery Princess came back and won next out with a 54 buyer. I was torn between the 4 and the 6, and I knew I'd get a better price on the 4. So the 4 is where I went, and I've already bet the horse to win at 6-1.
I like Sky Interest relative to Piper, especially at those prices. Just, unexposed, is supposed to run a little bit better in this spot, and that's a definitely a rock solid price. But I was thinking Awesome View was going to be a little bit tricky to down in this spot. We're dealing with a 8-start maiden that hasn't won yet, but it didn't look like the easiest trip last time. Not breaking well, hustling up, back in just 19 days off that 86-day layoff. Nix and Jaramillo connections you can rely on pretty nicely this time of year down there. Those are the 2 interesting ones to me, 3 and 4.
Do you think Jaramillo's job just hustle out of there and go, or do you want to try to sit?
That's a great question, and I think it's probably one of those let the horse tell you kind of things. I mean, sure. If Piper or World Gone Wild are going to gun, I think I'd be content to let them gun and try to flop outside. But if Awesome View catches a flyer and those two aren't going, I wouldn't mind seeing Awesome View go right to the front. I love Jaramillo on speed horses. So I trust him very much to do the right thing. But I don't have a clear sense of what those outside runners are going to do and how fast they're going to look to push things in this spot.
It's such a tough call because World Gone Wild was the one for me that was such a wild card because that's proper speed. That's one-way speed. And I agree with you, the idea that if you think they're going to get into some sort of duel, pull back, tip out into the clear and come with your run. But at 5.5, that's a lot to happen in a short amount of time. And I do wonder if being down on the inside, you say, you know what, let's go. Hopefully somebody blinks and it's going to be them and they relinquish the lead. I will say the 7's taking a ton of money at 3-1. I didn't see that happening. And I wonder if that's perhaps folks looking at her saying she is controlling speed.
There could be signal in that, but I mean, I don't know. It feels to me like the pace scenario here is too muddy for her to be as short as that, but we'll see. We'll see what happens here when they pop the gates. We're not too far at Belmont, so what we'll do, we got a couple more questions. If you have any questions for us, hit us now. Time is running out. We'll watch this race. We'll hit some questions, and then we'll talk Belmont. We'll watch that. We'll do the leaderboard wrap, and we'll send you on your merry way. We have Chris chiming in about the Belmont race. We'll get to that in a minute. Lennox, shout out to Lennox, who's with the 7 here at Gulfstream Park. And let's see what happens. Did the 3 not break? No, the 3 broke half a step slow. But Jaramillo does look like he's intent on getting to the front. The crowd came. They came for this Awesome View late into 6-5. We'll see if that half step slow ends up costing Piper breathing down Awesome View's neck. With World Gone Wild, the aforementioned 7, probably getting the best trip of all as of right now. Awesome View may be throwing in the towel already, which would make it basically into a match between the 6 and the 7. And it does look like the 7 with that beautiful trip is just traveling like a dream on the outside and is going to take an awful lot of beating.
Now, look, do with this what you will, but with a horse who has been beaten as badly as this one has and is bet the way that she was, that to me, they knew she was ready to run today. I put it that way. They knew she was going to fire.
Yeah, you pointed it out that there was some tote signal there. And you know what's good to do in that situation? Note the connections, because that's usually not a one-time thing. You know, you can pay attention and you can say, okay, Kathleen O'Connell, okay. That's interesting. Owned and trained. Yeah, owned and trained. That's interesting. I mean, I do not think of that as a betting outfit. But there was something going on. Somebody was seeming like they knew something. Sometimes I'll go back and peek at the workouts. Was there something in there? Nothing that's leaping off the page. But it was a nice effort. I mean, really, though, the horse also just got an absolutely. I mean, you could tell a long way out that you couldn't necessarily tell who was going to win, but you could tell who was going to get the best trip. It was World Gone Wild, and she made the most of it.
And I guess maybe this is also one of those things, too, where this is a horse who they, for the most part, have been intent on being involved in the pace early on. And today, I assume when you saw the other 2 to your inside break as sharply as they did, you take back and you've got an entirely different situation. And so we've talked about it in the past. Certain horses can run well employing running styles they don't actually want to use. A speed horse, the example for me, and we never got to see any more than that, and I know we've got to get to Belmont, First Dude forever on the East Coast was a horse who was up on the pace. He'd run good races, but he wouldn't win. He goes out to the West Coast with Baffert. He comes from off of it, and he wins the Hollywood Gold Cup in his last start. So sometimes horses can do things even though they don't actually want to do them. Yeah,
and it goes to show sometimes, I mean, not in every instance, but there are times where getting left is a horse's best friend when it's a pace meltdown, and you come, you see a lot of complexities like that. A few comments to Alinda. We will say hi back. To Stephanie, we will say yes, that was some late money. Chris has a pick in here. Belmont 8th. 2-6 exacta. 2-6 with 1-4. Who did you like in here, Matt?
I went with Earthstrike, the one down on the inside. I'm drawing a line through the most recent start. Obviously, we fell, thumped the rider. 2 starts back, though. I thought that was a pretty good effort, all things considered. The form of that race has come back good. You've got 2 horses that earn 80 buyers next out. Just need a little bit of pace, which I know in New York is not common. But I want to give this one a little bit of a shot at a big number here.
I like Miss Delicious, the 6, one of the ones that's one of the ones that Chris mentioned. The big favorite certainly makes sense as well. A couple other questions. By my standards, in the dirt mile or the classic this year, I mean, he feels like I'd have to look at it more, but my just like first blush feels like he'd have a better shot in the dirt mile.
I would agree with that. I think to me, he's the classic grade 1/2 horse, where he's not really cream of the crop, but he's better than average. And that puts you in a tough spot because, what do? If your goal and their goal they've stated is to win a grade 1, you have a better opportunity, especially if we're just talking Breeders' Cup. You're going to have a better chance of doing so in the dirt mile than you are in the classic.
All right, the 6 is getting the trip I wanted here for Miss Delicious. I want to just see some nice, even fractions, not too slow, inviting closers into the race, not too fast, gassing out in the lane. We'll see what happens. Here's a good one from Howard. Who will be a lower price between Latruska and Maxfield? Probably Latruska, right? Especially if Spice is Nice doesn't go.
I was actually going to say Maxfield.
That's interesting.
I think Maxfield's going to be 2 to 5.
Okay.
And Latruska, I think at least with Envoûtant in there, if Spice is Nice does go, even if you want to include Point of Honor, I think at her lowest she's 4 to 5. Because I think there was still a group of people, and I'm just now sort of converted, that still don't totally trust her. And I think Maxfield's going to be shorter.
All right. Well, I'm not going to complain about this trip one bit. Let's see if we've got anything here. To me, it's like the exact right fractions. It's not too fast. It's not too slow. Oh boy, here comes the chalk. I think that 2-6 is looking pretty good right now. Unless this 2 hangs, going to win. Hopefully the 6. Oh, look at this. Re-engaging and fighting back. Oh, I think
2-6-1.
Let's give us this 2-6-1.
2-6-1. Ow!
Yeah, what do you think?
I think he got it. It's close.
I think the nose was good. Hey, that was not bad. Chris, thank you for that. It jived perfectly with our rationale. But yeah, I guess that's the thing. Some people will say, you don't want them to go. If the horse had gone slower, maybe the favorite doesn't get up. But, I think more often than you think, that just means that the favorite is that much closer and doesn't have to make that like visually arresting move, but still has the class to get up. I think that was definitely who was the rider of the 6. I think they did a really nice job there.
That was Jose Lezcano, who has been riding lights out.
Rides the grass well, and Donk, I'm figuring that horse definitely needed the race 13 days ago, happened to get the win. That's a nice race, 13 days back right into an allowance. I mean, I think the top 2 there might be okay.
I don't want to put words in his mouth, and maybe I'm going to screw it up a little bit, but the gist is, I remember at the Racing Forum, Mike Beer always said, keep an eye on David Donk when we go back to Belmont on the grass, because your horses who they don't run throughout the winter, but he has them ready to go, and they're all going to be giant prices.
100% right.
And this is exactly one of those instances.
And they'll often need one, or the best ones are the ones that have like a horrible dirt run at Aqueduct.
Yes, exactly.
Just out to stretch their legs, doesn't mean a thing, but like beautifully darkened up. All right, we're going to have a final leaderboard here. Now or wait till next Friday for your comments. We will definitely be next week Friday. What are your plans for next week? You have any programming notes? Any special plans for the Matt Bernier show?
Yeah, well, you and I will have to talk right after we wrap up here. I'm going to be in New York. We have 2 shows next weekend for NBC, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. Friday will be production meetings and rehearsals. So we'll have to work on timing of this little thing. And I'm flying down on Thursday, so that doesn't really make it any better. But we've got those 2 things coming up next weekend. And as far as the show this week is concerned, I think a lot of it will depend on how this weekend shakes down. If Maxfield goes out there and wins by 100, I'm sure it'll stoke the flames of the idea that, he is of the cream of the crop, and maybe I'll have to reconsider my position on him. But it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. And this time of year, we've talked about it as we get closer and closer, specifically to Saratoga and Del Mar. But you can kind of kick it off now, I think, with those 2-year-old stakes tomorrow. I'm just very curious to see what we get, and if you get some sort of blowout performance from either the boys or the girls, and maybe they all of a sudden become the de facto leaders of their divisions going into these summer meets.
All right, we can, while we wait for the leaderboard production meeting in the middle of the show, you can always do, you could do some pre-tape. We could do a bunch of pre-tapes, and I could do a bunch of live in the middle. Like, that could be fun.
So I had brought it up to the wife who's out of town this weekend, but I brought it up to her last night saying, I'm going to have to talk to Pete about how we're going to play this whole thing out. The Breeders' Cup Classic top 10 rankings are going to be voted on for the first time on Monday this coming week. And I feel like that's something we could at least discuss and do a pretty thorough deep dive, because I do think there's a fair amount of people who aren't totally familiar with who the older horses are right now. I get it. I get it. The Classic incorporates all divisions, as far as, 3-year-olds, boys, girls, whatever it may be. But I think at least this could be something that we can kind of sink our teeth into and chop it up for a little bit. And I know people enjoy hearing it. So
I think it's a great idea, and that'd be a fun thing for social media too, potentially, to send around. I love it. We'll continue the production meeting after the show. We'll give the winners. So the top 2 who've now punched their tickets for our tournament, our 80-person tournament for a BCBC seat at the end of the year. Jim Sebas, great to see him there. Mark Wilgard, Jim, I've had the pleasure of hanging out with many times. An enthusiastic chef, not by trade, but by avocation, and also a guy who's pretty handy with that HDR software. Mark Wilgard in second, Bill Casper in third, Casey Dacus in fourth place, Mike Samich, who's been on with us and done all manner of good racing work in fifth place. Matt Vagvolgi, we talked about him before. There he is again. Jim Sebas going double tour points with the tie for seventh as well. David Burke, Fred Christ, and Jorge Palza. That's our top 10 who will be getting tour points. Now, 5 more will play on Saturday's qualifier, which you could buy your way into over at horseplayers.com. They are Frank Foss, John Maslin, Wayne Atwell, Peter Ascio. I'm going to say it the Italian way. Asciotti. Hey, Bob Weir, not the guitarist, but presumably the husband who works for Buyer Speed Associates of Kim Weir from the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. So how perfect is that? That is our 15. Matt Bernier, any closing thoughts from you to wrap up this edition of Horseplayer Happy Hour?
No, just looking forward to the racing weekend. Again, ABR tomorrow, 5 o'clock. We'll be on chopping some things up, specifically the Wise Dan and Stephen Foster, but I'm sure we'll talk about some of the undercard stuff as well. And then Monday, the pod will be recorded and out either Monday night or Tuesday morning.
Good stuff. Thank you, Matt Bernier. Thank you to my hosts, Marshall and Teresa Graham. Thank you to producer Craig for pushing all the right buttons as usual. Our friends at the Breeders' Cup, especially Haley Amos, who's been such a pleasure to work with since the departure of that other guy. Though it is fun to get to see him be able to play in these contests now. That's going to do it. This show has been a production of the Breeders' Cup and In the Money Media. On our side, our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatal. May you win all your photos.